Buc-ee's? Heck yeah, Buc-ee's. Hey, welcome back to the channel. Sun's out, guns out today, although I'm indoors, so the sun being out is kind of irrelevant. And also, rather than guns out, we've got knives out today. Video about knives. You may be a little confused if you're not a bit of a knife nerd about all the different lock types there are for different kinds of knives. And some people really like slip joint folders, so there's no locking mechanism at all. But for those of you who want a blade that locks, you may be confused about which is the best kind or the best kind for your needs. So I want to talk about some of the different ones on the market. One of the most common is what we call a liner lock. This is a Kershaw, and the liner lock has part of the liner that's spring loaded, and it sort of pops over in the way of the blade and locks it. And when you push that out of the way with your thumb, then you can close the blade. Very simple, works very well. By the way, I'm filming at the local library today. I'm not at the range, so you won't have to put up with the sound of gunfire, but you might have to put up with the sound of lots of other weird things and kids playing and so on. But that's a liner lock. It's very basic. You'll see that on a lot of inexpensive knives. And some people have a sort of disdain for the liner lock. They find it not strong enough or not reliable enough. And it's associated with inexpensive knives, so a lot of people think of it as cheap and just not very good. But you also see it on some more expensive, some more high-end knives. It's not a bad way of doing it. It's just one way of doing it. In the same vein, here we have CRKT. We have frame lock, and the frame lock has a spring-loaded part of the frame that does the same function. It pops over in the way of the blade, it locks the blade, and when we push it out of the way, we can close the blade. And this is part of the frame instead of part of the liner, but it's very much the same idea. This Victorinox, most Victorinox folders are slip joint, but this one has a lock. And I don't think they call this liner lock, I don't know what they call it, but it's very much the same idea. It's got this little spring-loaded doohickey that keeps the blade from closing, and when we push it out of the way, we can close the blade. This one's also unusual in that the can opener, it's the bottle opener, also has its own little liner lock. Never seen a locking bottle opener before, but there it is. Another classic choice is the lockback. This is a Spyderco Bird. If you're not familiar with this line of knives, they're made in China. They're very inexpensive, but they're very good quality. They're a terrific value. If you're on a budget, the Spyderco Bird knives are a really good choice. But we just sort of have this sort of button on the back. The blade is locked, and when we push the button, well, we can close the blade. The old Buck 110 folders were locked back like this. Lots of pocket knives have been locked backs like that. You don't see it that much on more expensive knives. It's associated more with inexpensive knives. And again, some people have a disdain for it because it's associated with something cheap. But there have been a lot of great knives like the Bucks that have been lockbacks. Cold Steel uses this sort of locking mechanism a lot. They usually call it the triad lock. And what's the difference between a lockback and a triad lock? I have no idea. You know, I've read Cold Steel's, their factory literature on it, their advertising, their marketing, and I think it's just a lockback. I'm not convinced that it's anything special, but it does work really well. The ones from Cold Steel are renowned to be really quite strong, but most of them work really well. So the lockback is a classic. Okay, here we have a Benchmade, and this one has what's called an axis lock. There are these two little buttons on either side of the handle. We have a blade that's locked in place, but when we pull these buttons back, retract them, they're spring-loaded, then we can close the blade. And we have a Spyderco Paramilitary 3. This one has what's called their compression lock. And this one's very much like the liner lock, except it's on the back instead of the front. It's this spring-loaded doohickey that we push out of the way in order to close the blade. Unlike all the other ones I've shown you today, the big advantage of these two is I can close this blade without getting my fingers in the path of the blade. I can close this blade without getting my fingers in the path of the blade. On this bird, it is pretty much impossible for me to push this button without getting my fingers in the path of the blade. I can get them out of the way, obviously, but they have to start in the path of the blade. The same with our liner lock. I have to have my thumb here in the path of the blade. Oh dear. If it weren't for this little ricasso, I could have cut myself. With our CRKT, our frame lock, same thing. I have to get my fingers in the path of the blade. So in all of these cases, you have to get your thumb or your finger or some part of your body in the path of the blade as it closes. And that can be done safely. You obviously don't close the blade on your hand, but it is more safe to have your fingers completely out of the way. I really love this axis lock, and some people don't like it, that's fine. Something very much like this is copied. You see it on some Spyderco models. You'll see it on Hogue knives. SOG has a few. Some people pronounce it SOG. Some has a few of those. I've only seen the compression lock on a Spyderco. I used to like the Spyderco militaries a lot. They have a liner lock. I started liking these paramilitaries a great deal because I love the compression lock. And I'm not exactly recommending Spyderco as a brand. In fact, I should make a separate video and talk about these brands. But the compression lock is really awesome. I love it, and I'm a big fan of this compression lock. And I wish more manufacturers would do this. You'll also see what's called a ring lock on Opinel folders. And I like the Opinels a lot. If you're on a budget, they're terrific. They're inexpensive knives. Often they're $20 or $30. They cut really well. They have a convex grind. And they cut really efficiently. And often when Opinels come from the factory, they're not very sharp. They've been sharpened very inconsistently. You'll see dull spots on the blade. If you hold them up to the light, they reflect light. So they need a little tuning up. You need to run them over your hones when you first get them. But after that, they're great. You can get them in carbon steel or in stainless steel. Some people will say the carbon steel knives cut a little bit better. I've tried both. I'm not convinced that carbon steel performs any better than the stainless. The stainless performs really, really well. They just are terrific knives for the money. But anyway, they have a twisting ring lock at the base of the blade. This isn't one, but at the base of the blade, there's a ring that you twist to lock that in place. It's very strong, it's very positive, it's very easy to use. You can look at it and see if it's locked or not. It's easy to lock and unlock. But again, and I guess you could close it without getting your fingers in the path of the blade. The big disadvantage of the Opinel is they don't open easily with one hand. They close easily with one hand, but they don't open easily. So, that's not an unequivocal recommendation. The only other weird one I want to point out is this cold steel kudu. Apparently knives like this are very common in some parts of Africa and some other parts of the world. We grab this ring, which is like a keychain, key ring, and that's how we unlock the blade. You can see it's locked, but when we pull this back, we unlock the blade. And it sort of ratchets open and closed. This is common in some parts of the world, I'm told, but I hardly ever see them here. The only mainstream knife in the US that uses that system is the kudu, and there's even a slip joint kudu that doesn't have it at all. But the kudu is available with that lock, and it's a lock that seems to work well, but it's a little strange. So if you ever see one of these and you can't figure out how to unlock it, that's the way you do it. These are also inexpensive knives that work well. They're, oh gosh, I want to say they're about $10. They're not expensive at all, but they cut well, they do well. So again, if you're on a budget, that's a pretty good one. This is another one that wouldn't open easily with one hand though. In any event, so those are some of the lock types. I strongly prefer those that keep your finger out of the path of the blade. I wish more manufacturers would offer something like this axis lock and the compression lock as well. I'm happy with any of these lock types for the most part, but I do have my preferences. Anyway, that hopefully will give you some information on how maybe you can select a knife for yourself in the future. Keep your powder dry.